Before we get into this review, I think it's essential for me to provide a sort of resume or a background on myself as to why this Minecraft man is suddenly gushing about Halo. It's not just because it's the flavor of the week and I think it'll get a lot of views. Halo is as core to my DNA as the block game is. I've been playing Halo Online since Halo 2. I founded a clan in Halo 3 that had over 250 people that actually had the prefix in their gamer tag, which was kind of crazy. I was on Bungie favorites multiple times in Halo 3, and when Halo Reach launched, I was the 26th most awarded wheelman in the entire community of the title. That continued through Halo Reach into Halo 4 and Halo 5, where I restarted my YouTube career with Halo Funny and Lucky Moments and daily Halo uploads for over a year and a half on this channel. So this isn't a flavor of the week for me. This is something that I am deeply passionate about. And while I'm not usually a more vocal member of the Halo community, I've definitely felt it as a second home. So when I got the call from 343 asking if I wanted to go hands-on with the campaign before it launched to let people know whether or not I thought it was good, yeah, I jumped right on that. Halo Infinite is an impossible game. After following up from Halo 5 Guardians, which campaign was not the best received, to say the least, Halo Infinite is kind of in a place where it just can't win. You see, Halo is one of those franchises that has all sorts of books and novels and comics and movies and soon a TV show, all centered in this world, telling disparate but still canonically logical stories, and striking a balance between a story that relies too much on that knowledge of the expanded universe, see Halo 4, and one that sort of disregards it, trying to tell a story that's entirely escaped from that reality, as well as encapsulated away from it, see Halo 5, is a balance that 343 have yet to fully nail, and they've definitely really done a lot better in this title. Making a Halo game will never satisfy 100% of the people who talk online about playing Halo games. And for different generations, Halo has been either a dominant powerhouse or a niche title, depending on which one is most recent and what other games existed in the space and where the space was at that given time. That's one of the reasons why I think making Halo Infinite's multiplayer free to play is such a really smart move to establish that sort of market share. What that's done to monetization in the title is another video for another day, if you all actually like to hear me ramble about this game. But in today's video, we're focusing on the campaign and the next chapter in the story of John 117, the Master Chief, everybody's favorite helmeted hero who really never revealed his face, as long as we don't talk about that one time in the Halo 4 Legendary cutscene. And I have to tell you, it works. It's a good story, told well, with a small, intimate cast and setting in a sandbox and a world that serves to tell that story in a creative way. Halo goes semi-open world in this title, allowing for more player freedom in how certain engagements are taken on by the player and what strategies they use to overcome the different open world obstacles in the title. But it's not whole hog, meaning that there is still those linear set piece moments that you expect in any Halo title present in Infinite and done to a T. There's the tank section, there's the Banshee section, there's the fighting of the hunters to get up the grav lift. There's several different boss encounters, which I will not spoil, and an enemy who chews on the scenery and you love to hate until that one moment that flips everything and makes you realize that you've been rooting for the wrong people. All of this is told in a way which, in my opinion, should satisfy the most diehard of lore nerds, as well as the most casual observer who's just picking up Halo on Game Pass to play this one title, go through the campaign once, and then primarily focus on fragging friends in the arena. And I know this will be controversial, but I think that's almost exclusively because of the year delay. Certain things I see here could have gone wrong, not given an extra 12 months to just sand back everything to a pristine finish where there are no splinters or gotchas or catches in how this story is told and how it plays out. So do I think Halo Infinite would be worth $60 if you weren't picking it up on Game Pass? Is it the kind of thing where I'd go stand for a midnight release to get my copy, run home, and play through it before the story couldn't be spoiled for me? Yes, I do. Halo Infinite is set on Zeta Halo, which has been pre-exploded for your convenience at the start of this campaign. Why that happened, what happened to Cortana or the Infinity or any of the other set pieces that we know from previous titles, that's kind of all a mystery. It's framed as a mystery. And figuring out what happened and what you're going to do next and why the Banished are interested in a ring that won't fire because of the huge hole in it, those are all questions that will get answered throughout this story. And it's done by an extremely small cast. Contrasting to the over 24 speaking role major characters in Halo 5, Halo Infinite has 6. The Master Chief, the Pilot, the Weapon, Escharum, the leader of the Banished and your primary antagonist for this campaign, the Harbinger, which is a new character introduced in this title, and that's all I'm gonna say about them, and one other character which I will not spoil because it will ruin a major reveal in the story. And toning the scope of the story down and making it a very small, intimate affair between just a handful of players is a needed refresh after the galaxy-hopping adventure of Halo 5. Now, I liked Halo 5. I know I'm in the minority there. I enjoyed the campaign for what it was. I wasn't entirely satisfied with it, but it was fun. It was mindless fun. I'd akin it more to like a Michael Bay movie. We start with the Pilot, who is very much not okay because he just wants to get home. He finds Master Chief thinking this is his ticket out of there, but Master Chief doesn't want to go home. Master Chief sees a bunch of Banished around, and Master Chief wants to shoot a bunch of Banished and ruin Banished plans, because that's what the Chief does. The tension between the two of them is one of the central axes on which this story revolves. Pilot either feeling unsafe, unwelcome, or unwell in the situations that he's put in throughout the story, primarily because of Chief's decisions, and Chief being laser focused on the mission, moving forward and trying to punch through the Banished instead of running away or leaving. They're joined pretty early on by the Weapon, who's Cortana, but definitely not Cortana, as Jen Taylor returns in a brand new AI. The Weapon is your comic relief, at least in the beginning, for this story. She's definitely a little bit more naive, not as battle-weathered and as weary, doesn't know as much about the Chief or about the fight that he's constantly embroiled in.
The Banished are planning to fire this ring. We need to make sure they don't.
First of all, what's a Banished?
And the dynamic between our three heroes is something that we haven't seen in a Halo game before. It's not outright conflict, but it is definitely disagreement on how to move forward. And as far as reaching those goals, what sacrifices each of them are willing to make to go with the overall objective. The main villain for the campaign is Escharum, who we've seen in all of the marketing material to this point. Escharum is one bad dude. He smashes his fists on the table, threatens his insubordinates, and growls threats at Master Chief through holograms, setting himself up to be about 40 stories tall at one point, which really kind of sets the tone for what he thinks of himself. And if I'd only been able to play the first half of the campaign, that's all Escharum would be. He'd be the antagonist, the bad guy, the person who you want to go kill to make the story be over. But there's a moment with Escharum and one of his subordinates about halfway through the story, which really lends some understanding as to why the Brute Leader is the way that he is, and it gives you a little bit understanding and empathy, realizing that Escharum is really just a counterpoint to Master Chief. He's the Banished's version of this hero that we've put on a pedestal, who's gone through immense sacrifice, struggle, and strife to get to the point that he is at, and the only way he knows to continue moving forward is to continue fighting with everything that he has. This leads to a sort of respect between the Banished and Master Chief as you progress throughout the campaign, which at least might have been me reading into it just a little bit too much and trying to put meaning there that wasn't, but that's what it felt like to me. There is the wild card of the Harbinger, who I'm 90% sure is a Forerunner or some other species from Forerunner times. And this is the point where me, who's not deeply steeped in all of the AU and additional lore that you see in the world, that's where I kind of fall behind. They definitely have a plan and something else that they're looking for on Zeta Halo, and it goes into play in the latter half of the campaign, primarily the last third. But I'd say primarily Chief, Escharum, the weapon, and the pilot are the 4 points that are constantly orbiting around each other, pinballing off of each other, and their decisions ricocheting and changing everybody's trajectories, and doing so in an arena that could not be set better, Zeta Halo. As I said at the start of the review, this game is set exclusively on Zeta Halo, and you can see the entire map, the open world map, from the get-go. This is a big departure for 343 and the Halo franchise, as the game has always been exclusively linear set-piece story moments from its inception. This is more Breath of the Wild or an Ubisoft waypoint-driven experience than it is something like Elden Ring, where exploration is almost essential and you get basically no hints on where to go. Zeta Halo is beautiful and will have certain set-piece moments and encounters and points of interest that you're definitely funneled towards to be able to clear. One of my favorite was this anvil mining site, which you have to go to for a mission, but on the way there, the natural paths point you through a secondary facility, which just acts as another additional challenge that you supposedly come across organically. Now that's not entirely true, because the pathing definitely leads you to pass that on the way to the primary mission. And while Zeta Halo is fun and expansive, it also feels a little empty to me. And I think this was on a part of 343's unwillingness to fully commit to the open world genre for Halo, for fear of backlash from a community where it's very clear that backlash is coming regardless of what 343 would actually do. I think I only ever randomly encountered a set of enemies that weren't at a major point of interest or a funnel of several paths intersecting across each other 2 or 3 times. I can't tell if they were fully random or if they were moments that were triggered to happen whenever I crossed through a certain area. To quote Datto here, enemy density is extremely low on Zeta Halo, and everything seems consolidated around these different open world points of interest instead of actually filtering through the world as a whole. There's actually a quote from 343 at one point that said all of the open world stuff was optional, and that breaks my heart, because it says that a lot of people put a lot of effort into building this playground space and then just had nothing to put into it because there was a fear to commit essential requirements or gates or anything locked away in the open world that wasn't part of the linear campaign story. So the effort of clearing fobs or rescuing teams or breaking propaganda towers or ruining a mining facility just feels somewhat ancillary to the overall campaign, and I don't know what impact any of that had aside from making my traversal of that world a little bit easier. It's fun, but without it being a core element of the campaign and feeling like something that's kind of running in parallel to the actual primary story, it feels a little hollow. Now this is probably going to be more fun with friends, being able to roll around with a warthog, set up all sorts of crazy shenanigans, playing with Halo's physics engine and the different utilities and tools that you have in your pocket, but with no split screen or co-op campaign at launch. That's a serious blow to the head to the overall fun element of Zeta Halo. But I think co-op coming later and the ending of the title leads Halo in a very interesting position, and I'm gonna be interested to see if I'm right. Prediction coming later. Now, the variety of the overall world that you're encountering in is matched very nicely with the weapon design and enemy design of the title. The weapon sandbox is tuned extremely precisely, with each weapon providing a very decent role, with a few minor exceptions of things that feel just a little too different from earlier iteration counterparts. These are all the same weapons that we've been fighting each other with in multiplayer for the last few weeks, so anybody who's been playing Halo before today knows about everything that I'm talking about. But there are a few standouts that I think work really well in campaign itself and have a little bit more of a purpose in the campaign than they do in multiplayer. While I'm not a fan of the typing of weapons of projectile, plasma, energy, and electric that you see in multiplayer, it works really well in campaign, as like kills like, and being able to have Forerunner weapons when fighting Forerunner based enemies provides for a faster time to kill. I actually timed this out. A Sentinel beam killed in almost twice the speed of an AR when you were fighting just run-of-the-mill Sentinels. Combine this with the equipment that Chief now has and the campaign exclusive option to upgrade that equipment with Spartan cores, which are upgrade points that you find at specific locations throughout the world of Zeta Halo, and you have this sort of dance that happens whenever you go to any location. The grapple shot is the standout star of the equipment that you're going to be able to use in the campaign, getting you into and out of certain scenarios depending on how you use it. And that works really well because this is a really vertical map. Not only being able to Skyrim horse your way over the mountains that you clearly aren't intended to go over, which you knew I had to do because of course, but also being able to commandeer vehicles, grab weapons and cubes and throw them at enemies. And throwing fusion coils at enemies is the single greatest addition to Halo Sandbox, and I will never not have fun with it. Couple that with really good enemy design and a few set piece moments that exist in the open world that you stumble across and then have an option as to how you want to approach them, and the weapons complement the world and the enemies for this overall cohesive storytelling of just how awesome Chief can actually be. Now that ties in nicely with a few of the more linear elements. Like I said, you have the tank section, you have the trench run, you have the Banshee section. Even though that one does take a little bit more place in the open world, quote unquote, as you're flying to 4 different markers to perform a certain task. And I don't even know if I was supposed to get a Banshee during that sequence. I grapple jacked my way onto one and then used it to fly to 3 out of the 4, to grab a Warthog which was sitting there to head towards the last of the titles. And that combination of freedom as far as different dictation as far as how you're going to be able to play is a careful balance that Halo Infinite strides pretty well. And enemies are smart. AIs at the higher difficulty levels will punish you really well in the right ways. They're not just cheap with auto lock on and infinite ammo. Instead, they move, position, maneuver, and will combine certain skills and actions that different enemy types can do to really throw you off your game and put you on the back foot in almost every encounter. There was a specific moment where I had a brute throw a plasma coil at me, and then one of the Jackal snipers shot it, blowing it up in my face. I can't tell if that was accidental or intentional coded AI design. It almost passes the game design Turing test to some degree. Were the enemies that smart to do it, or was it random chance? It only happened once, but I'm thinking, is that something that was actually coded in? And in asking myself that question, I started to think of the enemies as real, and that is a sign of good AI, especially at the higher difficulty levels. Playing on normal, a lot of things just kind of stood there and let you shoot them in the face, but once you move it up to heroic or legendary, it's gonna be brutal. So that's a lot of words and a lot of thoughts as far as what the game does and what it does well and what it doesn't. So I'm gonna sum it up right here with a nice little bow. I think Halo Infinite is good. The campaign is a compelling story told well with a small and intimate cast which doesn't overstep its bounds. It strides what is a near impossible balancing act of recognizing, acknowledging, and contextualizing a lot of things that happened in Halo 5 with a lot of the EU material that has happened since then on the official timeline to come to a start of a new chapter. Halo Infinite does not end in a conclusion. If anything, it feels like it's setting up for something which is a more drastic turn for Halo than I've seen ever before. And this is where we go to my speculation. At the end of the game, after all is said and done, you're dropped back into the open world and left free to explore. You can replay campaign missions, which is good. Being able to go back, do things differently, play with a different engagement, and run around to grab all of the collectibles. But there's also free roaming bosses and the different fobs that you can unlock. Again, can, but don't have to. But there's certain set pieces in Halo Infinite's world, on Zeta Halo, which feel to me like something straight out of Destiny. And even looking in the map at the end of the game, just sitting there going, what am I going to do next? It felt like when I had logged in every Tuesday to figure out what I was going to do for my dailies and what powerful rewards I wanted to grind out. Now, there's no loot game in Halo Infinite. You can really only upgrade your equipment, all of the weapons you find around the world, including several variations and special versions, which you get from killing roaming world bosses, which is a nice touch. I like that. So I don't think it's going to go full looter shooter, but I would not be surprised if additional campaign DLC or missions or areas of the ring are unlocked over Halo Infinite's lifespan. I know campaign DLC is something that's definitely fallen out of vogue in the greater world, But at the same time, live service titles, the things that release seasons and updates and new missions and new content on a regular cadence, is something that people really play, especially ones with a free-to-play element. Now, I don't think Halo is going to be doing a BR title either, but there are certain areas of the map where if this doesn't turn into firefight, or this doesn't turn into a horde mode, or this doesn't turn into the ability to replay certain missions with different challenge modifiers, or for scoring, or seeing new enemies appearing around the map that then need to be eliminated for additional lore cards, or additional audio logs, or additional weapon variants. If none of that happens, it's going to be a huge missed opportunity. And I don't know why. I'm just throwing the speculation at the very end of the video because I think it will. And I want to put it out there and call my shot that if this does happen 6 months from now, a year from now, I could say before the game was even out, Legundo called it. I have no idea if any of that's true, but that's the vibe I got with the ending cutscene of Halo Infinite and where it set you up for the remainder of the title. Halo Infinite is on Game Pass, so it's practically free if you're already paying for it. So just get it. Get it, buy it, play it. It's a good story told well, and it's definitely one that you should experience. And it's something that hopefully will become the sort of cultural touchstone on the start of a new chapter of Halo's lifespan. The multiplayer is already free to play, and if you haven't played it by now, you either didn't know about the stealth launch that they did for Halo's 20th anniversary, or you just aren't gonna really be interested in playing Halo. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you should. It's a great game, and it's a lot of fun. It still has kinks to iron out, it has problems, but it's fun. And that's the most important thing when it comes to video games, that they're fun. I don't do reviews often. I haven't done one in over a year and a half, but this was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So I'm going to tell you, I recommend that you go play Halo Infinite, and I'm going to be doing the same once it releases on December 8th. That's it for the video. If you enjoyed this, I know it's probably not going to do super well given my audience, so why not go support me on Patreon? I can do more content like this that's more about passion than viewer numbers, and something that could really help me move forward to be an independent creator that's not dependent on the YouTube algorithm. I'll see you all on the battlefield, Spartans. Be good to each other, take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.